Okay, so now the quiz is done. It should be collected. And now I want to do something that's not normal, and that would be we're going to go over the quiz right now, right when it's still in the middle of your head. You're still thinking about whether or not you did it right or wrong, and we're going to catch you now when you're ready to listen about how we might change our ways of doing things. So number one is I wanted to let you know that I know that distance learning is not easy. I've seen it before. I see it all the time in my house. Um, the teachers say, don't work together, do your own work. And I know it's not happening in some circumstances. And I know it's not easy. But one of the things that I want you to do is if, let's say, you had a situation where you didn't know how to start the speed problem, or you just weren't prepared to do some of the other stuff. And maybe it was because you're sitting at home and you're learning how to do speed problems and you're just like, this is so hard over the video. And so instead of going through the speed problems, you guessed, or even worse, maybe you just texted your friend and got the answers. And so it looks like you got 100, okay, but it really didn't. And this experience, this last 20, 25 minutes, when you were looking at that blank sheet of paper, I'm talking to those people who have that, is a learning experience. This is not a time for you to feel bad or to go home and feel like maybe something went wrong. But it is a time when we know that when we take shortcuts, we get eventually those come back to haunt us. One of the examples I used was if we were to be lifting every week for the football team, and you can see kids around you, they're lifting every day or every other day, and then we get in on a day and it's time to do our max. And that every kid is going up 5 pounds or 10 pounds in their bench, right? But you know that you haven't been doing the lifting. And so you get down there and you start it and you go down 5 pounds, or you don't go up at all, right? And the shortcuts that you took are going to hit you then. And that's the same thing for school. If we take shortcuts at home when we're supposed to be learning, eventually it's going to hit us in a quiz and a test, or sometimes maybe even later in life. And so don't feel bad about that. Get out your notebook and let's talk about how we're going to correct that, right? How are we going to get this test done correctly? How are we going to use the methods that the people around you used to get the problems right? All right, so here's our quiz, and I'll put it up on the board, and I'll put myself into small, bring the quiz over. And so the first thing was just, can you do these 3 metric system identifications? And see, you saw this was worth 4 points because these are the ones we're focusing on. These are the ones you're going to use a lot of. But I still want you to know some of these other ones. And it's not extremely difficult since we did give you the yellow sheet to know at least, right, that if we have kilo, well, we could look at kilo and its abbreviation is K, right? So it's right on the sheet. It's K. And the abbreviation for this one right here, milli, is right here. So it's milli. And for this one, centi, it's C. Okay. And then we talked about it before the test. How do we know what the values are? Well, we're just going to follow from the base. So kilo is 10, 100, 1,000. So kilo is going to be 1,000. Milli is going to be 1, 1,000. And centi is going to be 1, 100. Okay. And then the rest of these, mega. Okay. Remember, mega is 1 past the kilo. So when we go 10, 100, 1,000, now we're going to have to go up by 3 zeros. So from 1,000 to 1 million. So mega is going to be 1 million. And this one, micro, is the opposite way, but it's just one step below milli. So it's 1 million. And giga right here, and it's a billion. 9 zeros. All right, remember to always use the fractions. If you put 0.001 here, or 0.01, you're absolutely correct. That's how you were taught in 8th grade. It's great. It's just that you're going to need to know these fractions to do conversions when we talk about it today. And so get in the habit of using the fractions instead of the decimal points. It's going to make your life easier. Okay, so now the speed problem. And so the speed problem here can be done very quickly. I actually had an instance where a kid asked me if he could do it in his head and give it to me in different units. And I was absolutely like, what's going on here? Did he have his phone out? Did he put that into some sort of program? Absolutely not. Just was able to think it through. But then I asked him, I said, well, what if you're wrong? Can you just write some things down on how you're thinking? So I went back, he was writing everything down he was thinking. The problem took him about 15 minutes. Gifted student, knew what he was doing, understood, right, velocity and everything. But at the same time, we need to know, number one, that gifted part of knowing velocity. We know that because we live it, but eventually that's going to run out when we get to acceleration and things like that. And so we should definitely think about using the 4-column method. And what was great about the situation was when I do the 4-column method for you guys, it takes about a minute and a half. And so what the message that we're trying to convey to you is, we are not trying to waste your time. We're not trying to make you do extra work. We're actually teaching you ways to get through the problem faster and so that you can comprehend it better and to give you a system that will work for the rest of the year. And so what we do is we create our 4 columns and we're just going to go through the problem and pull out the information that we can in the first column, in the list column. And so we see right here the distance from the school to the house is 8.5 miles. So we write down D equals 8.5 miles. And the student is able to drive home in 0.35 hours. That must be a time, right? 0.35 hours. And they ask us for the velocity. All right. If we looked at this right here, right, if we are to cover up all of these, we see V, D, and T. We go to our yellow sheet. There's only one equation that has all 3 of those that we need. So V equals D over T is our equation. And then we're going to substitute. So V equals 8.5 miles divided by 0.35 hours. All right. And since there's no algebra to do now, right, all I got to do is put my calculator in, put 8.5 divided by 0.35. And I get V equals 24.29 miles per hour. Okay. Don't worry if you rounded some other way. We didn't tell you what to round up to or whatever. So not a big deal. Hopefully you were reminded. I'll put it up on the board. Units, units, units. Always put in your units. Okay. And then we got this problem. And then someone said to me, another one, what happens? Do I need to answer this question because it's only worth 0? Well, I mean, we're just trying to get you guys into the habit of checking your answers. Does it make sense? And so in this instance, does 24.29 miles per hour make sense in this situation? Well, here the speed limit is 35. They're certainly below it. It's really easy to simply answer no, right? So even if it was worth 0 points, it took longer to ask, do I have to do this problem, than to just to write no. And what we're trying to do is get you guys to think through this. All right. So now I want to show you this other problem. I'm not going to do much more on this quiz, but here again, the 4-column method for the problem with Monique. And here's where, remember, we're going to have some learning experiences. So Monique's driving, and she's going to drive at 72 miles per hour. That's a velocity, right? 72 miles per hour. And she's going to do this a distance of 682 miles, I believe. So the distance is 682 miles, and they're asking us for the time. All right. So again, right, we look at this, we say our equation is V equals D over T, right? And now we're going to substitute. So now we got to be careful when we substitute. Last year or the year before, this was what we considered to be a basic problem. You substituted in, and there was no work to do algebraically, and so you just put it in your calculator, and you got an answer. But here, when we substitute, we're going to see, right, that velocity is 72. The distance is 682, and the time is here. Right? remember our goal always in algebra. Get the variable by itself on either side, right? And do whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. And so in this instance, right, we can't just put this in our calculator. We need to do some algebra. And this is one of the hardest ones where not only do we have to do algebra, but we have to get this t up into the numerator, right? We don't want it sitting here in the denominator. And so we've talked about this trick. The way to get the t into the numerator in the first instance is to multiply by t on both sides, right? Whatever we do to one side, we do the other. If we do that, we see t divided by t and we can cross it out. Now, all of my professors then told me to rewrite, which I'm going to do. So t times 72 equals 682. Eventually, you guys may not need to rewrite. But all I've done is I've just made it so I can see what's happening. So I just rewrote the equation without all the things that I crossed out. Now, same goal, right? Get t by itself. How do we get t by itself? Well, we got to get rid of the 72. And so we're going to divide by 72 to get rid of it on both sides, right? Whatever we do to one side, do to the other. And these 72s are going to cross out. We're going to get t equals 682 divided by 72. Now that is a number that we can put in our calculator. So 682 divided by 72 equals 5.3 hours. All right, and we'll put our answer right here. T equals 5.3 hours. So here's where we're going to learn a little bit. There's a significant amount of people who, when they do physics, they just decide either I'm going to divide something or I'm going to multiply it. And I'm going to take a chance. Well, when you look at this, 682 divided by 72 is one opportunity, but 72 times 682 is the second, and 72 divided by 682 is the third. So if you're doing physics and all you're doing is trying to guess, do I divide, do I multiply? In this instance, you've got a 1 in 3 chance of getting it right. Those are bad odds. I wouldn't go to Vegas with those odds, right? So do not just take a stab at it, all right? Always do the problem, substitute in and go. And for a lot of people, when they multiplied these numbers, they got this huge number. And they said to me, Mr. Block, I got this huge number. Well, yeah, it's likely that that is a clear indication that you did something wrong. So make sure you think about that. You're going to get even more and more confusing equations, and the odds are going to go down even further. All right. So the last thing, if you didn't, we're just measuring this line. Hopefully it was in centimeters, and then we had this beginnings. Right. This is going to be the slope. We had this at the beginning of class to find the slope, and so when I grade it, I'll give you all back your comments. If you did badly, we'll have a retake day. But we're going to move on to conversions. So please take out your notebooks that you completed the conversions, and your teacher will start your next video.